Hey, what's going on, guys? Brian from Zombie Guitar here. This is going to be a multi-part series looking at 7th Arpeggios, okay? Diatonic 7th Arpeggios. We're going to be looking at all different shapes, all different positions, all up and down the fretboard. Basically, a 7th Arpeggio is simply just a triad, which is a root, third, fifth, but we're also going to be adding the 7th degree, okay? So we're going to be looking at major 7th arpeggios, minor 7th arpeggios, and dominant 7th arpeggios, okay? Before I get started, I just want to give you guys a heads up. Take a look at the members section of my website. It is known as the Lead Guitar Improv course. There's a link below to that. There's over 2,000 videos in there currently, and I'm constantly adding new material to that each and every week, okay? So constantly updating my members section of my website. It is growing every single week, so check that out. All right, so with that said, let's get started. Alright, so let me just give you a quick overview of the theory behind all this. If I happen to move too fast regarding any types of theory, I put links to all relevant lessons below, okay? I've went over this stuff in much more detail in a lot of those other lessons. All of that stuff will be below if you want to look further into any of this. But anyway, for the purposes of this lesson, I'm going to be in the key of C major / A minor. Not just this lesson, actually the entire series is going to be in C major / A minor. Alright, so in the key of C major / A minor, you have a 1 chord which is major, or major 7th. You have a 2 chord which is minor, or minor 7th. Your 3 chord is minor, or minor 7th. Your 4 chord is major, or major 7th. Your 5 chord is major, or dominant 7th. And your 6 chord is minor, or minor 7th. You also have a 7th chord, which is a half diminished chord. We're not going to be focusing on that half diminished chord for the purposes of the series. I'm going to do another series that goes into detail on diminished and half diminished chords, okay? For the purpose of this series, we're just going to be focusing on just those 6 chords, okay? So you can also look at this in the perspective of A minor as well. It's the same key. It shares the same 7 chords, okay? So you have your A minor, or A minor 7, and then there's that half diminished guy right there, which we're not going to be doing in this series. Then you have your C major, or C major 7, D minor, or D minor 7, E minor, or E minor 7, F major 7, G major 7, or I'm sorry, G dominant 7, and back to the A minor. Okay, so those are your 7 diatonic chords. It doesn't matter C major, A minor. Okay, they're relative to one another. They share the exact same 7 diatonic chords, just in a different order. So now let's take a look at the arpeggio shapes that we're going to look at for this part of the series. Part 1, we're going to be looking at arpeggio shapes based off of the A shape of the caged system. Alright? So if you're just looking at major arpeggios using this particular shape, your major arpeggio looks like this. Okay, so a major arpeggio is always the root is always going to be indicated with a red dot. I use that throughout my site. Major, root, always red dot, okay? So that's a major arpeggio. The minor arpeggio shape that we're going to be looking at in this lesson looks like this. Okay, and I always indicate my minor roots with white dots. Alright, so if you were to just walk up through all of those arpeggios using just major or minor, not including the 7th, you could do that. You could go. Okay, so you could do that. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to add the 7ths, okay? So let's start on the major 7th ones, okay? So you know that the 1 chord and the 4 chord are major 7ths. So a major 7th arpeggio just simply adds in an extra note right before the root, okay? So we're going to start these arpeggios on the root and then walk through them, but then when we get to the next root, before we play that root, we're going to add in the 7th. So this is what it looks like. The blue dots indicate the 7ths. A major 7th degree falls 1/2 step below the root. So you have root, 3, 5, 7, major 7, and then root again, then 3, then 5, then 7, then root. Okay, so I just added in that major 7 right before the root. Okay, you could add one before the root down here as well, but we're starting these arpeggio shapes on the root. So this would sound like this. Okay, so that would be your major 7th arpeggio. So now you get to your minor 7th arpeggio. All right, so just looking at starting with the minor arpeggio, to add in a minor 7th, you would add in the 7th 1 whole step below the root. Okay, so again, we're starting these arpeggio shapes on the root, but then the next time you get to the root, you're going to add in the 7th 1 whole step before it. Okay, so walking through that, you would have root, 3, 5, 7, root, 3, 5, 7, root. Okay, so that sounds like this. Okay, and then your E minor would also be a minor 7. F major would be the major 7th again. Okay, then once you get to the G, G would be the 5 chord. The 5 chord is always going to be a dominant 7 chord. Turning that into an arpeggio, it would become a dominant 7th arpeggio. Okay, so to make a dominant 7th arpeggio, you have a major arpeggio or a major triad, and then you add in your 7th degree 1 whole step below the root. So again, starting on the root, working your way through 1, 3, 5, 7, back at the root, 3, 5, 7, back at the root. Okay, so the blue dot again indicates the 7th, and it falls 1 whole step below the root. So that sounds like this. Then you're back at the A minor. Okay, A minor would be your 6th chord, which again is a minor 7th chord. Okay, so you can walk through all of them and just go. those are your arpeggio shapes that we're going to be looking at for part 1. All right. So when you're in a minor key, there's one often additional dominant 7th arpeggio found. Okay, so even though that the A minor key and the C major key, or any relative major minor pair for that matter, even though they share the same 7 diatonic chords, if you're in a minor key and you treat the minor 1 chord as your 1 chord, well, your 5 chord often is turned into a major chord, okay? And then that major chord still retains the same 7th, but a major chord with a flat 7 becomes a dominant 7 chord, okay? So that's a very common thing to find in minor keys, okay? So if you're in the key of A minor and you're calling A your 1, you have your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in the key of A minor, your 5 chord would be E minor, but we're turning that into an E major chord, all right? And then retaining that flat 7th. The 7th isn't changing. The 7th is still a flat 7th in relative to the root, but it becomes a minor 7 or a dominant 7 chord. Okay, so but all the rest of the chords remain the same. Okay, so you still have your minor 7, and you still have your half diminished. Then you have your major 7, your minor 7. Now this is a dominant 7. Okay, major 7, still dominant 7. The G still remains dominant 7. And then you have your minor 7. Okay, so that's just something to keep in mind. In minor keys, and you call on the minor chord the 1, the 5 chord becomes dominant. Okay, it becomes a major triad, and it becomes dominant. That is what results in the harmonic minor scale, but again, that is a topic for another lesson. I also linked you to that lesson below. All right, so we're going to finish this lesson off with just some practical examples. All right. Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick little improv over a 3-chord chord progression in the key of C major. We're going to have the C major chord, the D minor chord, and the G major chord in the rhythm section. So those chords are just going to be majors and minors, but I'm going to be playing, you could just play the C major scale over the entire thing if you want. You could play a C major arpeggio over the C major chord, a D minor arpeggio over the D minor chord, or a G major arpeggio over the G major chord. Or you can go ahead and you can even play the 7th versions of those arpeggios. Even though they're not 7th chords in the rhythm, you can still play the 7th arpeggios in your playing, okay? It's still all going to be in key. It's still going to be diatonic to the key, okay? So it would be a C major 7th arpeggio, a D minor 7th arpeggio, and then a G dominant 7th arpeggio, because this is a 1, 2, 5 progression, okay? So those are the 7th arpeggios that would get applied to these 3 chords, okay? So I'll start out just walking through the major scale, and then I'll start arpeggiating a little bit, all right? So. Okay, so you see how I just started walking off, I just started playing the C major scale there. Alright, and of course you could play the C major scale all up and down the entire neck of the guitar if you want. I was just playing it in that little 3-note per string area there. But then I started throwing in the, the proper 7th arpeggios. Okay, so I did the C major 7th arpeggio over the C major chord. I did the D minor 7 arpeggio over the D minor chord. And then I did the G dominant 7 arpeggio over the G major chord, okay, because it was a 1, 2, 5 progression. The 1 chord is major 7, 2 chord is minor 7, 5 chord is dominant 7. All right, so let's take a look at a minor example, and then we'll be done with this lesson. All right, so now I'm going to do the same thing for a minor key, and so we're going to be doing an A minor chord to a G major chord to an E major chord to an F major chord, okay? Again, we're going to be applying the correct 7th arpeggios over each chord. Even though that the chords in the rhythm section aren't 7th chords, we're still playing 7th arpeggios over each chord, okay? So the A minor gets a minor 7th arpeggio. The G major gets a dominant 7th arpeggio. The E major, okay, so the E major is kind of the oddball here, but like I said, it's a common occurrence. It's the 5 chord in the key of A minor that is becoming a major triad, getting a dominant 7th arpeggio over that as well. And then the F major chord gets a major 7th arpeggio, okay? So let's hear how that sounds. Okay, something like that. So again, I was just kind of superimposing the correct 7th arpeggios over each one. Over the A minor, I was playing the A minor 7 arpeggio. Over the G major, I was playing the G dominant 7th arpeggio. Over the E major, I was playing the E dominant 7th arpeggio. Over the F major, I was playing the F major 7 arpeggio. Okay, and then, as I said, over the E major chord, if you don't want to arpeggiate, because that's the 5 chord, it's a major 5 chord in a minor key, that's where the harmonic minor scale comes in, but again, that's a topic for another lesson. So I posted links to all relevant lessons below, including that harmonic minor scale stuff if you want to check that out. But that's going to be it for this lesson. Stay tuned for the rest of this series. I don't know how many parts it's going to be, but there's going to be, I don't know, maybe 8 parts, 6 parts, 10 parts, I have no idea. But we're just going to dissect these 7th arpeggios one part at a time. Alright, so thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.